victim.
Wow.
Wow.
And in sheer panic and fear, as a new believer, he cries out, Jesus, 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 or Jesus, help me. And instantaneously, the experience stopped. He felt he was slammed down into the bed. His wife woke up and said, why are you jumping on the bed? And I said, Wes, that's unheard of.
Right.
I said, all the research we did from the other investigators, researchers on the abduction phenomena said that you cannot stop an abduction experience. Yet this man said he had. And it was the way that he stopped it that backed up the vision that I was given. Because he invokes the name and authority of Jesus Christ, what you talked about at the introduction to this show, to these entities, and they had to respond. And I thought, if this is real, this is huge. And I started contacting the top investigators in the realm. I can't tell you who I talked to because they asked for anonymity. I can tell you what they said. I always respect anonymity. I said, guys, I got a case here I don't understand. I want to share with you. Each time they asked me, can we go off the record? I said, sure, we can go off the record. I said, just help me here on what we have. Each one agreed that they had come across similar cases in their research where people had either used the name and authority of Jesus Christ, had quoted scripture, had sang a hymn, or something to that extent, and experience had been stopped. And I said, excuse me, but why have we never read about this or heard about this from you guys? The answer I got with them was, we didn't know what to make of it. But that wasn't the only answer. I would have been fine with that answer. But the answer that followed was, we were afraid to go there because it might affect our credibility in the UFO realm. So they knew they had evidence of research that they were not disclosing. Excuse me, but what is that called?
Cover up?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
You got it.
Yeah.
We hear in this realm, government cover up, government cover up, government cover up. Listeners of this show, I'm telling you, these leading researchers are covering up information. People that we've been relying on for the truth for decades have been covering up because it doesn't fit the agenda.
But I
knew because of this, they confirmed that there were other testimonies like this. And I shared with them that because of this, I believe this is a piece of the puzzle that must be shared. And I said, I'm going to take this, and I'm going to run with it, and I'm going to find these cases, and I'm going to document them. You know what they all said? They all said, please do, because we can't.
Wow.
In the 14 years that I've come to the truth and sharing this information, these testimonies, these particular researchers have never, ever come against me. But ones that I never did talk to have actually come against me violently.
I'm sure. Joe?
Well, I think the important thing to establish here is that when we hear the term cover-up, we are automatically, and understandably so, directed to think that it's an organized government cover-up. what Joe is establishing here is that it isn't anything that where you have orders from the top to cover this up. We're talking about private. Are we not talking about private institutions here covering up what is data that is data that needs to be exposed as an answer to what is going on? Let's establish first and foremost, is this a private cover-up, is this a government cover-up, or is it both?
It's a private cover-up.
Okay.
I don't think this is a government cover-up. I think it extends to be a little more than private after a while. I think there are independent secular researchers in the realm that once you put them all together, they all agree that they don't want this information out there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they react to this very strongly. You know, I had the opportunity to speak at 2007 at the 60th anniversary in Roswell, and I got to be the director of the Roswell UFO conference myself in 2008, and I got to share this information there. And I tell you, it was like dropping a bomb on the UFO community. I finally put myself in a position where they had to listen, and it just exploded.
Well, sure. Let me ask this, Joe. You established just there that a private cover-up where I guess there's not a public accountability as far as accurate information is involved. Is there any evidence to suggest that there is a government cover-up, whether it's federal, whether it's state, whether it's worldwide? Is there any information to suggest that there is a government worldwide cover-up with regards to UFO information?
Well, I do believe that because of not understanding what the phenomenon truly is, I do believe that there's probably people in our government who are withholding information from events because they don't understand the nature of it. And they probably feel that it could be harmful to national security, that, sure, they have a right to withhold information. I mean, we're not told everything because of, national security issues. And I don't think we're privy to hold everything. I mean, if you got problems with the government keeping secrets and you think they're doing something wrong, you can fix that. You can vote the right people into office, and you still have to trust them that they're going to do the right thing. So it's very important who you vote for, that you're voting for a person that can be trusted to do the right thing. It doesn't mean they have to give you all the information on what's happening, because some secrets have to be held because you're dealing with, conflicts between countries, and political regimes and theologies, and ideologies. And I see a reason for things being kept secret, and I have no problem with that. But as far as it from this perspective of it possibly being something so scary that they don't want to release the information, that it's much darker than they ever imagined. Secular researcher Nick Redfern just recently did a book, and he got into that. And he believes that through the research and the findings that, from his book, that, the government does know that there's some major issues with this. And they don't know how to handle it, so of course they don't release it. I mean, everybody in the UFO realm's pushing for disclosure. So all you hear is disclosure, disclosure, disclosure. And I think if it ever came out what it really is, I think you'd wish you never knew.
Yeah.
But Joe, correct me if I'm wrong here, but if let's say that this becomes common knowledge among UFO researchers that we're not talking about interstellar crafts and beings here. What we're talking about are fallen angels, about demons, whose real motive in all this is to destroy people's lives. If this became knowledge, wouldn't this pretty much end UFO research as we know it today?
Yeah, and that's why they're mad at me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm probably the most hated man in the UFO realm. They love me on one side, but because I'm very friendly to them and I respect them for their work.
Mm-hmm.
I meet with them at the conferences. I meet, in Roswell. I talked to them. I invited them to the 2008 conference. And I honored their research that they've done. I just wanted to respect it, to be able to put my piece of the puzzle on the table. I told them, I said, this is about putting a puzzle together. And you can't have an actual picture until all the pieces are put on the table together. And you can't just say, I don't want that piece, because it might change what I think the puzzle should look like.
Mm-hmm.
And the consequences of accepting this will destroy people. What they believe, what they've always believed in.
Yeah.
And this scares them.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's almost, Joe and Bill, like you spend an entire lifetime investigating something and you want to get to the truth of it, and someone comes along and says, here, very simply, here's what it is, and you look at the evidence and, well, there's what it is, and that's not what I expected to arrive at, and it's almost like shock. You go into a state of shock. I mean, you look as a UFO investigator, you go into a state of shock from a secular point of view that, well, here's what this guy Joe Jordan and others are saying about what UFO abductions and UFO phenomena are really all about, and you're left with, well, here's the evidence, and here's what I have to arrive at, and, well, where do I go from here? And it's, do I want to continue doing this when someone has presented this evidence, or do I continue the search? You know what I'm saying? It's
sure.
It's a dilemma that is presented to the UFO field in general, that if they've heard what Joe is saying about what is actually going on in the UFO investigative field and the UFO phenomenon, if they've heard it, how are they reacting to it? And if they say, you know what, Joe Jordan, you know what, we believe what you're saying, it's like, well, then where do we go from here? It's like everything that we've invested in our lives is like come down to a very simple fact, and here it is. What do we do with it?
But it's not just that, because it ties in to Jesus Christ.
Yes.
Yeah.
They now must become accountable.
Yes.
Right.
And that is not what they want.
That's
and you know what's fascinating is in 2010 I had 10 living testimonies. 2008 I had 10 living testimonies on stage at that Roswell UFO conference at the end of my talk. 10 living human beings that could testify that their lives have been changed and the experience is terminated by the name and authority of Jesus Christ.